You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 146, and it seems like it's been a while, but we got the three original hosts back for this Tuesday episode. My name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram. With me co-hosting is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. And actually, Hyung, you're connecting with us from San Diego today, so what are you doing out there, and how's the weather?
I'm in Padre territory right now.
Nice.
It's Hassan Kim territory, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But I'm not here for baseball. I'm actually here for golf. My niece is a little golfer. She's playing in that IMG World Junior Championships for golf. So here in town for the next couple days, supporting her. Just being an
Nice.
uncle. Yeah, it's weather I can't complain. I say it all the time. Every time I'm down anywhere south, I question why I'm in Toronto. Yeah, so
Yeah, Cali weather, you can't beat that, right?
yeah.
All right. Well, good that you're still able to connect for this episode. So off the top, for today's episode, we're actually recording just a few days after the MLB All-Star break. And there was kind of a big thing for the hobby that went on in Seattle where the All-Star game took place. Of course, I'm talking about the launch of Fanatics Live. And I believe Mama Breaks, Stephanie, and KK Sports Cards helped with that launch by breaking some Topps baseball products, including, I hear, the 2009 Bowman Draft Box. And
Wow.
they were trying to hit the Mike Trout Bowman Chrome Auto. I don't think they did, but it was kind of cool that they were able to rip open a box of 2009 Bowman Draft. But just want to get your thoughts on the Fanatics Live launch. Do you think it's got a chance to overtake Whatnot, which is, I think, the current leading live stream hobby platform? And what did you think about them launching during the All-Star game?
I was actually looking for kind of like a little more content regarding kind of like that break, and I feel like there wasn't much kind of out there, which was shocking. So it kind of told me a little bit about kind of like I guess the launch. Well, one, if they're ripping 2009 Bowman, with chasing Trout, what,
Right.
how much did that cost? Like what were the break spots? I think they were like $9,000 each, which is, but it was a big break. They had
Crazy.
like Topps Definitive, they had like Bowman Sterling, Topps Chrome, and a bunch of other products, but they did hit a redemption, a one-of-one Hank Aaron expired redemption, which is to me, it's like, it's a crazy hit, but it's an expired redemption, and there was nothing that was proactive. Like, what if we hit, something like that? There
Right.
should be something that, they had in place. I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, media might get attention of that, and, Fanatics might do something about that. But I feel like they were a little bit unorganized, a bit, including stuff like Adley Rutschman, who, they had on the, which I thought it was great. They had big leaguers, all-stars and stuff like that. But Adley wasn't even a card guy, so it's like doing your research and bringing in the right guys. I thought they could have done a better job. But going to your question about a platform like Whatnot, I think Whatnot has already established kind of like that platform for breaking right now in the current hobby. A lot of hobbyists use, Whatnot. So I think for the time being, it's not like everybody's going to move over platforms. I think it's part of what they were talking about, what Fanatics and Mike Rubin was talking about before, how they're trying to reach a totally different demographic. Their main thing is to create, an experience, an online experience where they could and we talked about this, leverage their resources to, create a different type of experience, especially to an
Mm-hmm.
end consumer that, might be different from the demographics of the true hobbyists, right? So I already know the true hobbyists are not going to like, Fanatics Live platforms, and they think, it's bad for the hobby. But overall, I think the concept was good. Um, I thought the break was like super expensive, obviously for that reason. But other than
Mm-hmm.
that, I think it's another stepping stone for Fanatics. We just see them doing something every day, and I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon with the amount of money they've invested, in the past couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What do you think, John?
You know what Hyung when Hyung mentioned right off the top when he was saying um, it didn't seem like it got enough media coverage that it should have.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's right because for myself, I rely completely on social media to find a lot of these news items. I don't. I'll admit I don't. A lot of times, just being so busy, I don't go out and hunt for them. So it's just whatever sort of pops up on my IG, and I didn't even really know about it until we just started talking about right now, right? So it just,
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw a bit of it on Tops's IG that I didn't really pay attention to, but I certainly didn't really see it on most of the card IG accounts that I follow, like some of the bigger ones. So I think Hyung's right in that it seemed a bit more of a quiet launch, and I didn't watch and maybe I'm wrong about this because I didn't watch the All-Star game. So had I been watching the All-Star game, when was it on? Like live, I'm assuming it was on live TV. No.
No, it was on their app, their live app, right?
Oh, it's through that live app.
Right.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it wasn't on like the actual broadcast or anything like that.
Yeah, no,
I
I
don't
and,
think
and
so.
I just seen a video. You could go take a look on YouTube. You see a video of the app. It's kind of like when Facebook Live goes and they're breaking, and then you have a bunch of people chatting. But the cool thing is you could divide the break into like divisions. That in this case, I think they were broken down to divisions. So it's all organized in that sense where the app provides all that. They had a randomizer where they're giving away, an auto. I think it was, I forgot who it was, maybe a Josh Young auto. That it was
Hmm.
a random to the people that were involved in the break, and it was going on while they were breaking. So I think they have some cool features in the app where it's like catered to breakers. So I believe it was on that.
Right.
Okay, right. But I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
other
cool.
than the fact that maybe it didn't get as much media coverage than it should have, I think it's for those in the breaking world. I mean, this is all. I think it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You start to eliminate scammers. You start to eliminate if something bad happened to the app or something went wrong. Uh, I would hope Fanatics would make it right for their customers in any scenario. And, if it's some other company that doesn't have a major bankroll or has customer support, maybe you would have a lot of customers that end up getting screwed over, so to speak, right? So
Yeah.
to see some like a big company like Fanatics do this, yeah, I think it's good.
I'm gonna agree with all your points. Like I think one, I only knew about it because I follow Mama Breaks, and of course she was a big part of the launch, so she's promoting it out there like she should. And two, I thought the same thing. It wasn't Adley Rushman; it was another player from the Athletics, but he wasn't a card guy either,
All right.
right? And they're like, "Oh, do you collect?" It's like, no, not really, that kind of response. So it was
Right.
a little underwhelming. But if I'm gonna be optimistic about it, it's just getting started. All this is just getting started in terms of the launch of this Fnatic Lives. Maybe it was supposed to be a soft launch, right?
Mhm.
And it was done on a bigger event like the All-Star break, which is good. But you know, maybe something like this or more events like this will get more players involved, especially with the licensing deals, and you will get the players that are collectors be part of this, and the ones that aren't collectors, they will become collectors to promote future events. So that's a possibility, if I'm going to look at it with a half glass full perspective. It's just another option, for breakers. So the more options there are, I think the better for the hobby. And Fanatics Live is, it's not going to go away. Even if this was run poorly, they're going to improve on it. That's what I really believe.
And they put out the criteria for you to become a breaker. I think it's pretty strict. Like you have to have like a 3 camera setup. Like there's all these like kind of like on their website they have these disclaimers of kind of like what you need to do to become a breaker, right? So I know they're super strict on that because obviously they're trying to avoid a quick sleight of hand move from the bad apples in the hobby. So hopefully, they put that a priority, which they seem to be.
Yep. And it goes back to what John was saying, just more security measures to increase the confidence of, prospective buyers of these breaks, especially those who have never tried a break before. So maybe this is what it takes for more people to try it out. All right. Well, we'll see how future launches go of Fanatics Live. I'm sure they'll be busy trying to improve that experience. All right. Let's go on to hobby headlines. Staying on the topic of Fanatics, the other big news from them is the announcement of Fanatics Events, which is set to launch in 2024 sometime. And it says in a press release that in partnership with the IMG agency, Fanatics Events will first focus on the collectibles space, looking to find, quote, entry points to put a fresh spin on the biggest card shows and collectible gatherings. So some people are already describing this as a Comic-Con-like event, but for sports cards and memorabilia collectors. But before I get your thoughts, I just want to play a short 1-minute clip of what we discussed back in February of this year in episode 116. All right, here it is. I think Fanatics, why couldn't they do their own event? They certainly got the funds, and they got the connections. The National has been going on so long and not much has changed other than an influx of new hobbyists, new collectors that just came in because of the pandemic. Right. Even now, the venues are the same. They rotate through the same cities, Chicago, Cleveland. I think they had Atlantic City a couple times, right? And, it's one of those things I feel like, if nothing changes moving forward, there will be some company like in Fanatics is perfectly positioned to really take over this space. And I think events is going to be a big thing, and Fanatics has been taking over everything anyways within this sports card industry. All right, so I've been putting out posts on social media like the one you just heard today when I heard about Fanatics Events. And I was joking that people should start calling me Nostradamus for being able to predict the future, right? But yeah, I remember when I said that, it just seemed inevitable, and now it looks like it's happening, that Fanatics would come into this events space. Anyway, what do you guys think about Fanatics Events in general, and what kind of potential changes do you hope to see with Fanatics now getting into the card show space?
I think one thing that they've been emphasizing is experience. And I think that's like important to kind of note. And I think they've hit it right on the nail, because I think if you look at, obviously the debate is what happens to the National, right? So I think there's a lot of old heads that think a similar way of the Nationals always are the way it is. It's a buy-sell trade. Right? I don't think Fanatics is taking that angle, and I think the old school hobbyists always see it as it's a replacement, right? So one, I don't think it's necessarily a replacement for the National, but I think TriStar and the National is at threat at the end of the day. They have to step up the game. So at the end of the day, I like the push that it's making. The National have to be better, or it's inevitable that that's going to be in jeopardy as well. So I get both sides of the argument, but I think just like you're discussing Clark when we were discussing this in February, they're they're a beast. Fanatics is massive. They have so many resources that allow them to get into spaces where we don't even know about, and that's the biggest thing. Is this is what they're trying to accomplish. And going back to the Comic Con, something to note, it's not cheap. If you're there for the whole week or get a weekend pass, it runs up to like $3,000, right? So the question is,
Jeez.
how much is this going to cost people? If it's going to be like the Comic Con, then those are kind of questions that well, how much is going to set each people back? But I think the experience that they're going to put forth might be totally different than what we've ever experienced, and that's what I'm hoping for. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that field because we've been just following the hobby for the last 30 years. No one has really pushed. It was, you go to the national and same thing. It's like, where are you going? You got to go to Chicago. You got to, go to the national.
Right.
But at the end of the day, times are changing. And when someone like Fanatics comes in and pushes that kind of agenda, it's definitely going to change the industry. And I'm optimistic about it. And I know, like, I read comments, especially out in Blowout, and 98% of, hobbyists, they don't like what Fanatics are doing. And I'm just going to put it out there. Like, from a non-hobby perspective, I'm looking at it from a logical standpoint. It's like, why would these guys do this? Why would, just in business, it's a totally different game. They're not in it for a quick buck, for instance. A lot of people say, oh, they're just here to take our money. Well, obviously it's a business, but they have to provide enormous amounts of value in return because now you're in jeopardy of your sustainability, especially the magnitude that Fanatics has on, the hobby itself, right? So
Yeah.
I think we have to be optimistic and have trust in Michael Rubin. He was literally with A-list celebrities, right before.
Yeah.
But it's a marketing tactic. He's marketing. He's playing the game. He's getting the right people involved. Whether that's too mainstream for us hobbyists, you know what? I just look at it as an advantage for people who are in the collecting space because they have intel that majority of people don't, right? So at the end of the day, you shouldn't see it as a threat, but more so as an opportunity to, have more valuable stuff at the end of the day. Because if there's more people coming into the hobby, and you have the right cards, your cards will become more scarce at the end of the day from a supply demand standpoint.
Right. Yeah. Good points.
I mean, we spoke about this based on your sound bites, and we talked about the fact that because of who Fanatics is and how big they have a huge opportunity to pretty much fill every hole or every gap that we could ever imagine and start to make everything better. And that's I'm sure that's what Michael Rubin is thinking when he says he's 10xing. He's going to literally fill all these holes and these needs, and like Hyung said, maybe even things that we can't even think of, they're already thinking of, right? So this is, I think this is all good news to put pressure. I mean, not to talk bad about some of these big events like the National or whatever, but it's always good. It's always great to have competition in a space that is primarily dominated by one company or one person, because it'll just continue to make the hobby space better. And I think the National, especially just from what, like the three of us, we've never gone, but I'm sure we have a snippet of the experience in the our own expo, which is still pretty large in itself. But yeah, the expo, the expo experience is very much like a buy, sell, and trade. And from most of the YouTube videos that I watch about the National, it seems like it's legitimately the same thing, other than the size, that it's 10x the size, right? And I think in that space, especially listening to some YouTubers now, it's when you're in a bear market, it starts to get pretty difficult because a lot of these folks that have been going, some of the guys that are really hardcore into the hobby, they're gonna, like, this is their thing. They go every year regardless of investment or making money. They're going, right. But a lot of these folks that are go there to investment, make some money, hobby, meet up with some friends, great. But I could see a lot of folks kind of 50-50 about going to national. Or if you ask some of these YouTube content creators, like, people always ask me, is it worth it? Should I go? Well, here's my opinion. And a lot of times it's not, it's not 100% you have to go, because they know, like Hyung said, it costs $3,000, $3,500 if you can even find a hotel. It's a lot of money to spend to go to essentially a buy, sell, trade floor where you get really tired. Not necessarily like a crazy experience, other than the fact that you meet up with some people that you see, like content creators, and chat it up with them and make some new friends. But in terms of actual experience, like experiencing the national, I don't know. Like that space could be done way better. And I think that's where Fanatics is going to take over. Like you walk in, and I know they do the national VIP. Like you could open up sports packs and get certain cards. And I don't even know how it works. I don't know who gets them, but you could walk in, and each person who bought a ticket to enter is entered into this crazy giveaway draw that Fanatics does. Like Otani, like signed jerseys and this and that, like, like VIP to the next like all-star game. And they could do so much stuff that just completely enhances the experience. And people will want to go. Yeah. Like folks like the three of us it may be like an event that you can't miss. Even if it was $3,000 out of our pocket, whether or not we trade cards and make a little bit of money, regardless of that, like the experience itself is so worth it that I'm willing to drop $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a full weekend of my time, even though I have kids. Yeah, like I mean that's something that I think Fanatics has an opportunity to capture. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to your points, I get the impression that it's not just one big event going to compete with the national. And when I made that February prediction, it was in the context of one of my hobby hot takes that the national will decrease in attendance by 50% in the next 5 years. That was the context, but rethinking it, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they can coexist.
For sure.
And so that's I've come to that conclusion now. And like you're saying, Hyung, too, like I think the different experience is going to be evident in the different kinds of events they put on, like multiple events. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's just going to be one. Maybe there is going to be one big one that kind of rivals the national. Right. And, to your point, John, whatever that main event is. And I think part of it will be something like exclusive cards from that show. They could produce exclusive cards that could be worth something, and maybe it is worth $2,000-$3,000 to just experience that whole big event, and you get to meet A-list celebs. Something you were mentioning, Hyung, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if Michael Rubin's white party is of any indication, I don't know if you saw on his social, like it was every celebrity in the world was at this party. It was ridiculous. Yeah. Like not just NBA stars, but like, the Kardashians were there. Yeah. The actors and just from celebrity culture, and imagine them being at some of these Fanatics shows in the future. That could be a huge draw, and in comparison, I'm not knocking the National or Sport Card Expo or the guests that TriStar can bring in, but they're usually the same retired folks that loved by the hobby,
70s, 80s,
but, right?
And that's another point, Clark. It's the exclusive autograph list. Like, how is that going to pan out? Because Fanatics has that exclusivity on the autograph side, and they could totally dismantle kind of like if they wanted to, sure. Right? So like that's another question. The question is the autograph, right? It's like that's what the Nationals bring every year. You got the 70s, 80s guys that are the typical for the last 20, 30 years of card shows, right? So this is where it's going to be interesting with the exclusivity with players and whether they can attend or not.
Yeah. That's definitely something to watch too. And I'll just add, what I'm kind of excited about is that maybe they have these smaller shows around the country, around the continent, and who knows, like one closer to Toronto where you don't have to spend in regions, and then it's like, oh, this is a great professional experience. If you know that Fanatics is partnering with a company like IMG, that can put legit events, you're going to get a certain standard and certain quality in these events, right? So that'll be exciting to go to, especially if it's like a 30-minute drive.
Yeah. No, I would, if you told me right now, would you go to that first kind of event that Fanatics hold? I'd be interested. If you told me, hey, you going to the National, it's like, I'm probably not going this year. I'm just a little busy at the time. But if you're talking about the Fanatics, I would look into kind of say, okay, where is it? Can I make it happen? And just to see what it's all about. So that's where I'm sitting right now in terms of kind of like the demand of the event. I think it could be a cool experience given because they're trying to also merge culture. Like we're talking fashion, we're talking about culture, we're talking about, sports cards, collectibles. So this really hasn't been done. So it's like we haven't even seen the demographics or the potential that, we're talking about here, right? So it's a totally new experience that, I'm looking forward to, just because their strength, especially IMG in terms of, the capital they're able to bring up and their expertise, they're all about the experience, right? So it's again, leveraging their resources where it's going to totally, change the game in my opinion. And I'm not pumping Fanatics at all. Like let's get that clear. It's like, I have zero connection with Fanatics or, have zero incentive to pump Fanatics saying that it's all positive because I know majority of the hobby thinks the opposite. So just to lay that out there before I get, crucified here.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by Fanatics in any way. So this is just our opinion, but no, I agree with you. And you know what? Fanatics, they're going to do a great job marketing their events, right? And I'm a sucker for good marketing. So, I could get hyped by seeing a good ad on the net and like, oh, this is going to be an amazing show. Whereas the National is kind of resting on its laurels, right? And what the National has going for them is word of mouth. Like people that have gone, they're like, you got to go. You got to at least experience it once. And that, in some ways, you can't beat that. I'm sure Fanatics wants to get to the point where word of mouth is one of the major ways that, they promote their future events too. But that's what the Nationals got for them now. But, how long can they hold on to that? But like, just lastly for me, and you can add anything else afterwards, but in terms of like my rethinking that it's not really competing against the National, I think it solidified when I read Ezra Levine's Instagram Threads post. I gotta. It's not just tweets anymore. People are on Instagram Threads posting these things. But I just saw on his Instagram Threads post, and you got to remember he is also a big part of Mint Collective, which also puts on an event. He doesn't see this as a threat either. And this is what he wrote. Okay, 24% of sports fans over 18 gamble on sports. 19% of sports fans over 18 play fantasy sports. If the collectibles industry grows 10 to 20x from here, only 1% of sports fans will identify as collectors.
Oh, crazy!
We are still early, is how he says.
And that's I think we don't have that intel. Like we don't break it down to that, and that's why I trust the leaders in our industry right now is because they're looking at it from a totally different perspective on why they're doing these macro moves, right? So and here us hobbyists, looking in a freaking a magnifying glass, like looking at, the state of the hobby from a hobbyist standpoint and how great it was, 3 years ago when you could buy cards for $25 and they're not inflated. Like we could drum up all the excuses in the book, but change is inevitable.
Yeah, I'm excited. And for guys like us, content creators in the hobby space, that's just good news for us too.
Great news.
Yeah, when you have that much potential for growth in the hobby.
And Clark, that's another good point. If you're, and we talked to this with Denny too. If you're thinking about creating content, now is the time to do it. Now is the time to do it because it is early in the game, and we're not going away from digital. I'll tell you that
for sure. Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, that was big news from Fanatics, both on the Fanatics Live and Fanatics Events announcements. So I'm really eager to see what happens from here. And I'm sure we'll hear about it for sure from Fanatics side of things, but also from other hobbyists. And we'll keep you guys informed here on this podcast. Okay, let's move on to our next segment we call Overrated, Underrated. And the theme for today's segment is second tier sets. Okay? So not your Bowman Chrome, not your Topps Chrome products, but sets that usually cost a bit less, in some cases a lot less than those. Still with good hits, but yes, most people I believe would call these second or even third tier sets. All right? So you tell me if you guys think it's overrated or underrated. Let's start with Bowman Sterling.
Ooh. So it's overrated at release, underrated.
You can say that for any product, right?
Well, yeah, but especially Sterling, because Sterling is actually an expensive product. If you break it down, it's not a cheaper product on release, right? So it was supposed to be a higher end product. So Sterling, in terms of value of the cards, are like nobody wants Bowman Sterling, right? Like, but I think from an overall standpoint, it's still underrated, to be honest. And I think part of the reason why Bowman Sterling has history is because Mike Trout. That's the only card that I would say had like it's kind of like iconic, or at least it's still a third or fourth card for Mike Trout at the end of the day, like a Topps Finest. But it's one of a collectible card that people look after as alternatives for Mike Trout. So it tells me that there's potential in it, right? So if they're super rare, they're low pop counts in general, but they will never get the love, at least for now. Maybe in the near future as Fanatics releases, with a different demographics, but from a hobby standpoint, I think people don't appreciate it as much as it should be. They're beautiful cards. I don't mind them. The rip is, there's not a lot of cards, so it's a very expensive rip, but I'm going to say underrated, but super overrated at release.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point you bring up. You could talk about the set itself or cards from that set, whatever you like. You can take it whatever direction. John?
Yeah, I'm a bit torn about this because I get what Hyung is saying, because we spoke about this probably really early on in this podcast about Sterling, especially some of the base cards, not base, but like whatever, like a Vladdy Guerrero gold refractor out of 50 is underrated, right? And I think it makes sense, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. I do like that it is underrated. It can be called underrated in certain situations, but I think it's overrated. And it's to Hyung's point about the price point of this. It is considered a high-end product, and I don't think the hobby receives it or thinks of it as high-end. Other than the fact that people are aware that it's very expensive to buy, but in terms of its value, its whatever appeal, I don't think it is in the same breath as like Topps Dynasty. And price-wise, retail, I think they're fairly close, right? Obviously Topps Dynasty,
it would be pretty
you
close.
You get the one card, and Bowman Sterling, I don't know, you get 4 or 5 cards or something like that.
4, maybe.
Yeah. So okay. I think for the same price, for me, if you're gonna really go for what's high end, like it's Topps Dynasty, right? And if you think about, are they on the same level? No, they're not. So I will say Bowman Sterling is overrated.
Okay. I thought of Bowman Sterling because I just saw like a Elly De La Cruz Bowman Sterling auto, and it looked nice, right? And it's generally cheaper than the Bowman Chrome, and when the Topps Chrome card comes out, I'm sure it's going to be cheaper, the Sterling auto. But I'm leaning more towards what John said. I think it's overrated for what it is. I feel like it's that middle tier that just doesn't really get a lot of collectors excited. And I think the middle tier is what's going to die out first in terms of value over the long term. I think of it like department stores, okay? You get the high-end department stores. They'll always be there because you got rich people going there all the time. You know, like they like to shop at those places. But then you got the discount stores. You're going to have a lot of people just going to discount stores. But the middle stores, you know, middle tier department stores, those are fading fast, right? Like, where are they now? You know,
Right.
they once anchored malls, and now those stores are gone, and there's huge vacancy in those strip malls, or even in regular malls where they used to be the anchor store. So I think Bowman Sterling is in that middle tier department store, using that analogy. and I think, definitely expensive at rip, but I don't think it'll hold that much value. So I'm gonna say it's overrated.
I'll give you an example quickly of a Vladdy Bowman Sterling auto out of 25 I bought for $250. And at the time I bought it because the Topps Chrome, blue, gold, orange, super expensive. We're
Yes.
talking a blue at the time was $1,000, number to 150 Topps Chrome, or somewhere around there, and maybe a little cheaper. Gold waves were probably 1,300, 1,400 in that range, and I couldn't buy that Vladdy card, like justify spending 1,300 on a Topps Chrome, gold wave
Right.
auto at the time. I thought Bowman Sterling was super undervalued, right? And I ended up flipping that card for 1,000 at when Vladdy had his monster season. I let that go. It had a terrible auto too. It was 9.5 BGS 9.5. I ended up sending it for grading. It was a 9.59 auto, and out of 25, it's a nice card. It's the blue, and basically I 4x that. I couldn't have had that possibility with the other cards. So this is talking about subsets when they're super undervalued. So I'm looking at it in that perspective where there might be opportunities. So I guess it all depends on how you look at it, but that's the
Sure.
only reason why I would say it would be underrated, because you could potentially buy it at a price
Fair.
where nobody's willing to pay for it. So it's like, hey, if you see opportunity, it might be an underrated card.
Yeah. Fair. But I wonder if you could do that in today's market.
No, you lose
Because
money. If you're here to flip, you'll lose money. I promise you that.
Yeah, like the Elly De La Cruz one I saw, it was on auction and it was already at 900. I'm like, you're
Yeah,
not gonna get that money
definitely
back.
not the right player or the right set or the right time. You got all three
Yes.
whammies against you.
That's 3 strikes. Okay. All right. The second set is not really a set, but you'll know what I mean when I say it, what it is. Tops Now. And I bring this up because I put it on my Twitter and Instagram threads. The Elly De La Cruz Tops Now, where that game where he stole 3 bases.
Yeah,
On
ridiculous.
that. And then there's a Tops Now card where you get a piece of that base. I thought it was pretty cool. But in general, what do you think about Tops Now?
I used to think it sucked, to be honest. I hated Tops Now. I thought it was cheap luck. It was paper. There wasn't really any great incentive to get it, other than it's cool because you're getting kind of like a piece of history. At least that's the whole idea. Until I started changing the way I seen it with Otani specifically, because obviously any Otani's autos go for a premium, right? But specifically, I'm talking about the Otani and Acuna card. Like think if both of them win MVPs. You got the only card that has an on-card auto of kind of like Otani and Acuna, right? It was done on like a Tops Now. Like, would that become valuable where, people aren't necessarily worried that it's Tops Now. It's more of a, hey, this is a super rare card. It's an Otani auto. I think it could
Right.
build steam with that, right? So, I think it's underrated. I always used to kind of say, who buys these cards? Like when they say Tops Now is released. I know people like them. So I'm not dogging them at all because it wasn't a cup of tea for me. But I think now that I kind of see kind of some historical sales, I think it does have potential though, and
Okay.
I think that there might be an underrated theme on it. But in terms of like demand right now, it's probably not. People are probably gonna say overrated because nobody wants tops now. But I'm gonna say underrated still.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I have a question for you guys to help clarify a newbie question because I know Tops now. We all know Tops. I'm aware of it, but I don't follow the product closely. I don't really quite know the specifics of how it's distributed, but I did notice that when you buy Tops now, currently, the parallels come randomly, right? So it's almost like a chase, is it not?
No, you buy the parallel.
Oh, you buy it still. It's not like it comes in a
Yeah.
pack and you might get the red out of 5. You have to straight
No,
up
no,
buy the red out of.
you're paying a premium for out of five. You're paying a premium or like a little less for the 10 or 25, whatever it is, and 50 and so on. It's cheaper as the numbers are obviously higher.
So that's what I knew of Tops now, where you straight up the parallels. I don't like that system, to be honest. I think if they made it a chase where you buy into the card or the picture, and randomly you can get a parallel card that is numbered, I think that would make it so much better instead of like allowing people to just straight up buy the red out of 5 or the gold out of 50. I wasn't a fan of it before too. Everything that Hyung said, it looks cheap, paper, nothing special about it. I think if they randomize the parallels, I think that would be a cool touch if they haven't already. And what they're doing more recently with the fact that game used, whatever, specific game used. I mean, this is what we knew of what the capability of Fanatics. Yeah, I think that's going to really turn some heads and potentially make it. But I'm going to say, because this is overrated. Is it underrated? No, I'm gonna say overrated. It was just too trash before. I mean, there were certain cards that were nice. Like I think for example, like the Mike Trout Otani, that when they're facing each other in the World Baseball Classic, like that photo, that's awesome, and I think that's like a cool PC card that I'm sure a lot of people chased after. But other than that, outside of like a couple of very iconic moments, overrated. But I mean, it's so not talked about. I don't know. I didn't even know if I didn't even.
Overrated.
Yeah, how could you overrate something that does not even have a presence?
Yeah.
I'll just say overrated.
I get it. Yeah. For the most part, I think it's definitely overrated. But a card like the one I described to you with Elly De La Cruz with 3 bases on it, essentially base patches on it, to mark, and a photo of him diving into home from a camera view. That's a cool card, you know? And I think there's a few of those cards where baseball fans would want it, not just card collectors. You know what I mean? Like that's a cool moment in baseball. And that's what I think Topps Now should be about. Like legitimately capturing, you know, cool moments in baseball. And then, you know, but the base cards, like there's a base card version of them where it's just a photo of him diving home without the relics. Like that's not going to be worth anything, right? And I think that's, you know, nothing to chase. But if it has a good relic, and especially with Fanatics coming on board and they can authenticate some of these relics, I think it could be a sneaky underrated play in the future. And if they have autographs, you know, like to your point, a dual auto of both MVPs of that year, that'd be kind of cool because you don't see that often, right?
Yeah.
So
now that I think about it, I think Topps did a horrible job of branding Topps Now. That's what I don't like about it is the branding. So if it was something totally different, I think it would have totally changed it. But I think the branding sucked.
Agreed. All right. Okay, third one. This is the last one, baseball related, and we'll finish off with a couple of non-baseball sets. Topps triple threads.
Oh, triple threads.
If you're not aware, it's like one of those like it looks different graphically. You know, it might say Yankees, and then within each letters, you got like a game used uniform. Yeah. You know, could have an auto with it. John, you can start because he's already shaking his head.
It's so trash to me. I don't like triple threads at all. It is. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's an expensive product, right? Fairly expensive.
It is an expensive product.
I think
Yeah,
so.
it's
Yeah.
very similar to Dynasty.
And the concept of it, like a whole bunch of patches within lettering and stuff, it's not bad. It's a little gimmicky. I'm not going to hate on it too much, but for an expensive product, the designs of the cards itself, there's no shine to them. They look like paper cards with, crappy lettering or whatever with little patches in. I don't know. I'm just not a fan. I've never seen a triple threads that looks particularly amazing. Although I think triple threads is the one that has like Otani, Trout, Albert Pujols autos with their threads, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Like there are particular cards in the set that are bangers, but overall for the entirety of what it is, I've never been a fan, so I'm going to say overrated.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say it's pretty tacky. I was never a fan of triple threads just because I thought, they would sell die cuts and then put like the single color cloth underneath the die cut, and it had a lot of gimmick to it, and it was an expensive product at release. So there was no incentive to really buy it or, and there's some cool cards, I would say, within that set. But if you're talking like, it's not at Dynasty's level. Like I think Dynasty is a great product and super underrated, but like I wouldn't say it falls back to that same thing. It's like, I don't know if it could be considered, um, overrated, because it doesn't really have a demand.
Yeah.
Right. So,
really talks about it.
but yeah, I'm going to say on this one, I'm going to say overrated still because I just don't like the design. I just don't like die cuts. I don't like when they spell out like, like 3 for 3 or like, something stupid like
right.
Tatis, it's like, why are you spelling out his name? Like, and then it's just no appeal to the card that I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful card, right? Where the flagship card is like iconic, right?
Yeah. I'm going to show you this one. Listeners can't see it, but I mean, there's the top triple threads of Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Albert Pujols. Obviously, when they all play for the Angels, you got a patch for each of those players, and then a fancy sticker auto, I believe it is. Right?
Yeah,
that's a sticker auto.
That's pretty. It looks pretty. I wouldn't say no to that card, right? Like that's a pretty nice card at the end of the day. Still, I would love to have
60K is listed for, but
that's a little pricey.
Yeah, it's a little pricey, but not all triple threads cards are created equal. That's the point I want to make. Like the ones that have the names of teams or their last names with the relics behind them. That's a little tacky. But these triple threads with the triple auto and the patch, and then like the profile picture on the side. There's a few of those. I don't mind them at all. The only problem is with dual and triple and quadruple autos, right? Like, unless they're all retired, this card's a safe bet. Okay, Albert Pujols, Trout, and Ohtani. But there are some where like the third guy, don't know if he's gonna make it.
It screws it up. It ruins the card. You're like, can I erase this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have like Mickey Moniak on that card. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shoot, he was such a top prospect, but didn't pan out. And then you have him with other studs. So it's a risk, but for all those reasons, I'm going to say it's overrated as well. So overrated sweep with the Topps triple threads. Okay, a couple more before we finish off the show. Panini Mosaic for either football or basketball mainly, but Panini Mosaic. Because they used to be an insert, but now they became their own set in recent years, right?
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to say overrated. They're probably one of like the most disliked set for me personally. That Panini released. I ripped a bunch of Mosaic basketball. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great retail rip if you get in on the right price. But I mean, some of the stuff, like, the pricing is not there anymore. It's just Mosaic was huge during the whole, COVID bump. But now it's like it's very secondary, like not even secondary, right? It's way
Right.
down there. It's very hard to sell, in my opinion, unless you get like super rare, like the parallels, like the mosaics and the peacocks and the whites that are really
Yeah.
nice. Obviously, golds are still hot in basketball regardless, but I think overall mosaic. Especially for what people are paying for hobby boxes and stuff, I think it's overrated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does Mosaic even come in hobby boxes? It's more of like a retail thing, right? No?
Mosaic did have hobby boxes, yeah. They had hobby boxes with one auto. I hit a John Morant auto
Ooh.
in 2019 Mosaic hobby, which
Nice.
I paid a boatload for the box, but I ended up selling for 1,800 or something like stupid. That's how crazy the hobby was. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
going.
Crazy
So,
times.
of the ones you've listed so far, Mosaic is the first product that you're listing where it's actually popular, right? So that we can call it overrated. I'm going to go overrated, and I say that because
Mm.
I think Mosaic really garnered a huge amount of popularity because it became a set right when COVID was popping off and like the height, the hobby was just going to the moon, right? And
Yeah.
during that time, you couldn't get your hands on Prism. You couldn't get your hands on Optic and Select, and everybody wanted Chromium product. It was difficult to get, and
That's
all of
right.
a sudden you have Mosaic. You could literally, if you're lucky, you can walk into a Walmart and they'd be available. You can pick up blasters. And it was like a new shiny toy, another new Chromium product that is competing with the big boys. And some people were like, oh, this is number 4 behind Select or Optic or whichever way you want to look at it. Now that
Mm-hmm.
we are where we are and Select is losing a lot of steam and even Optic is losing a lot of steam and the demand for a fourth Chromium product within, like a genre, like a sports genre, basketball or football, I think it's too much. And I think we're starting to see, the results of that, right? How prices are coming down and Genesis, the once supremely crazy SSP, it's kind of coming down back down to earth. So I think, yeah, it's just one of these products that I don't know, dare I say it, it could disappear, and I think most of the hobbyists would be completely fine with it. Even the design in general, I think the designs were a little bit too gaudy for me anyway. So overrated for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I'm not going to take long on this. Super overrated. One thing I will add is that because I hate the design and I ripped blasters. Maybe it's a personal bias. I got zipped out of all these blaster boxes, and so the only thing I'll add is I wonder if it's getting to the point where it's so hated that it might be underrated soon.
Reverse
It's
psychology.
almost there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Donruss Optic.
Oh, we're talking about
Optic.
Optic. Oh,
So we're talking about basketball, football still?
Yeah.
Man, I think Optic got crapped on over the past couple years. It used to be the secondary set, and everybody again from basketball, football, it's Prism is king, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Optic was kind of like that product where, hey, this is number 2 for sure. And I think it's fallen so much in terms of kind of like I guess the demand for it. So I'm gonna say it was once super overrated. It's coming down to the point where I think it's starting to get underrated because
Mm-hmm.
it is a very classic look to Optic. I think it's one of the most fun sets. Centering sucks always, which is bad for grading, but other than that, I think they have one of the most beautiful cards. Like like Josh Allen's Optic Auto is probably one of the best looking football cards out there. Right, just his auto, just a classic kind of like the photos that they take with the quarterbacks with the rated rookie. emblem on it. It's kind of like that OG. And I think Luka probably put a big dent in that and the reason why, because Luka's optic was so popular at that time. Same with Mahomes, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I think, it's gotten to a point where it's come down a lot. I still think there's still a lot of overpriced optic out there, but in general, I think optic is starting to become underrated. 2 years ago, overrated. Now, I think it's
Mm.
underrated.
Okay.
I have a tough time with this because I love Optic. I have loved Optic, and I love the original Donruss rated rookie, and I think some of us old heads, we are a fan of that classic look, white border, sort of that classic card look. But as we get into newer and newer sets, I get kind of bored of it, sort of. You know, the look every year in and year out doesn't really update. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of like, I have mixed emotions about it. I feel like I'd be so much more excited about Optic if they just kind of moved away from their new sort of like quasi prism optic design look and just go for like the retro look, kind of like Topps Finest Flashback. Go back to like a full chromium optic set of like Donruss 91, like orange, and then Donruss 92, like the
Right.
blue. Like, I think that they did something like that, I think it'd be pretty cool. But or even made those. I think they do it already? Even if they made like a Ja Morant, you know, like not a rookie card, but whoever's the latest rookie, like Chet Holmgren, and then they had like the 91 orange as like a SSSP or something. Like, I think so if they bring in some sort of excitement with the retro looks, because that's essentially why Optic is popular, because of most of the age group like us who liked it back in the day, and have that nostalgia over rated rookie. I think that's what makes Optic popular. So I think they have to kind of like lean into that a little bit more and come up with some more creative ways to tap into that nostalgia to create some excitement. So I'm gonna still say it's Hyung is right though. It's now teetering, but I'm gonna still say it's a little bit on the overrated side.
Interesting. Okay. You know, remember the Optic Patrick Mahomes, John, that you and I both wanted, the Hollow, right? The PSA 10 last sold for $2,600. So it's cheaper than $3K when we were like last talked about it a year ago, right? So it's $2,600, so it hasn't dropped down that much, and it's kind of trending slowly upward again. I think it hit the bottom. It was like around 1,500 late last year, right? So it's kind of going back up. I still like the look of it, like especially for football QBs. Like that's always a good looking card, you know, a rated rookie optic, especially with the hollow refractor at the very least. And for basketball on card autos, like I just think it's still underrated. Like I think, you know, especially I agree with what you said, Hyung. Like optics definitely taken a bit of a hit over the last year with the correction, and I think there's an opportunity there to grab some of these cheaper on card auto optic cards, especially for basketball, at a good price. So I'm going to say underrated for Optic, Donruss Optic, and the rated rookie brand is pretty strong, I think, still amongst collectors. So, all right, underrated for me. Okay, well, that's another round of overrated, underrated. We'll do another one in a future episode. Okay, let's end off the show with a regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And this is where each of us choose two cards or two players, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right. Hyung, do you got one?
Sure. I'm gonna go, since we talked about this on in our chat group. Elly De La Cruz. He's a special kid. His prices have always been high. The reason why I haven't invested in Elly personally is because at release his prices were always ridiculous. And it's one of those things: are you buying at peak? Are you buying at peak? And his cards keep on going up. So where is the top? So I believe his PSA 10 Bowman Chrome Auto's floating around 1,500, I'd say, for a PSA 10. I'm going to pair that up with Jackson Holliday Bowman Chrome Auto from 2022 Bowman Chrome Draft, or Bowman Draft. Jackson Holliday is, I guess, the number one prospect now. with the Orioles in an exciting Orioles team. And he was also overpriced because he was the first pick. So he was very hyped at the beginning. So I'm going to pair Elly De La Cruz. Would you invest in him right now at 1,500 a Bowman Chrome Auto PSA 10, or a Jackson Holliday Bowman Chrome Auto PSA 10 at 1,000?
1,000. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know pop counts. I'm not there yet. I didn't get that far.
That's fine.
Jackson Holliday is 2022 Bowman Chrome.
Yeah, Bowman draft. Yeah, Bowman Chrome draft. And then Elly was in Bowman 2022 Bowman. And just to put it to, was he Bowman Chrome or Bowman? I want to say he was Bowman, but he could be Bowman Chrome. I could be wrong. But not that that matters, but Bowman is usually where, it's a lot tougher to pull because you get one auto in the hobby and then three in the jumbo, as opposed to Bowman Chrome's, I think, 2 and 3 in hobby and HTA. And then draft is 5, 3 and 5.
Oh, this is hard. Because I think if you're thinking from an investment perspective, it's very clear you should not go after Elly De La Cruz because he is as sky high as possible. And in Jackson Holliday, I'd imagine as much as hype there was that he did have during the initial release, I'm sure it has come down. I don't know if it has, but I would assume it has come down since some of his more peak pricing. So there's probably a bit of an opportunity.
Holliday?
Yeah.
I think his pricing went up because he wasn't the number one prospect, and this year he's tearing it up, right? So he's kind of been in an upward trajectory ever since his cards got released. So I don't know necessarily if they're cheaper than they were at release. They might be more expensive, to be honest. Same with Elly De La Cruz.
Man, this is like the battle of super hype. I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I feel uncomfortable picking
that,
either
so
one.
It's like, hey, see, the whole point is I should have bought Ohtani when he was high because he went even higher. I said at the beginning of the season, Ohtani's a buy. It's like you're buying at the peak. It's like the peak was not there.
Yeah.
You know what? If they're both hyped, there's a very, very good chance, high probability, you're going to lose money on both. So if that's the case, I think I'm going to go Elly De La Cruz because I think it's very important to note when a player becomes a hobby darling. Like clearly liked, traded, super liquid, hot, everybody wants him. That's a very big deal in the hobby, especially in the current hobby where if you go to a trade show or if you go to, your local show, even the buyers and sellers, everybody's looking for very specific cards now, right? They're not just going to fan cast and buy anything. They're looking for very specific, and it's Ohtani and Elly De La Cruz. So I think as much as they are both high and they're both hyped and I feel uncomfortable, it's Elly De La Cruz because he has become a hobby darling, just like last year, J-Rod. They have catapulted from prospect to he's the guy, he's the dude to collect. So I think that's going to make it easy. You're probably going to lose some money, but at the worst, you can liquidate or whatever you need to do, trade into something else that's pretty nice that you feel. You'll have better opportunities. So it's Elly De La Cruz.
Yeah, I'm drinking the Elly De La Cruz Kool-Aid. Like once he stole those 3 bases, it was cemented. It was over. Like he's just an exciting guy to watch, and even the short or even the small sample size of his MLB games, like the fact that he's keeping up. There's going to be adjustments for sure in the future, but that's all I need right now if I'm choosing between Elly and Jackson. Jackson, you're still paying for sky high potential, and Elly, you're beginning to see it at least right now. So. Both, you're buying at the current peak, just like Shohei could go higher, but I'd rather place my bet on Elly.
No, nice. I'm going to agree with you guys. I think a lot of people will pick Jackson Holliday though, just because I think that's how big of a prospect Jackson Holliday is right now. Like
Wow.
he is the real deal
And you're,
too.
yeah, and you're
So,
getting $500 value.
I just, yeah, but Jackson, or on the flip side, Elly De La Cruz, man, the Reds sucked before, and ever since he made the big leagues, the Reds are a winning team. Like they're 20-6 since he's played. He's made some ridiculous, like everyday highlight reel. Like
Right.
it's just it's
Hitting,
fun to
hitting for
watch.
the cycle.
He's like the handsome O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz, the broken version of Elly De La Cruz. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go Ellie, man. He's a stud. He's fun to watch.
You know what also helps? Joey Votto hyping his teammate up,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So I don't know if you've seen some
that
of
helps a
his
lot. Oh yeah,
interviews.
I have a crazy story about Joey Votto that I can't share on this pod. It has to be off record. But yeah, I just putting
All
out
right,
that.
tell us later.
I told that story earlier this week. It was crazy. It was just memories. But yeah, Joey's a character, man. Votto is a character.
I love Joey. All right, good one. John, do you want to go next?
Yeah, right, fellas. I'm going to go in honor of, we've talked so much about Fanatics in the hobby. What's better for the growth of the hobby? And now this is very hypothetical because Fanatics is obviously working on both of these things. Better product or better experience? If you could only choose one. Or if we were to, I don't know, we're giving advice to Fanatics to say, what should you be spending most of your money on to grow the hobby 10x? Better product or better experience?
I can go first. I think it's pretty easy for me to grow the hobby, right? I think it's got to be better experience, right? If you want to get outsiders to come in, because product is so subjective, right? More subjective at least than experience. So, but experience, if you make it, if you create memories through experience, and then you could tie any kind of product with that. Like you could be at this big main event that we were talking about earlier in the show, and then someone gave up a free blaster. It could have been a cheap blaster, but this is part of the experience. And they hit their favorite player, and then all of a sudden this becomes their favorite set. But it began with the experience, and especially for newbies. Like for us, we have our favorite product, of course, the things we like to rip. But to grow the hobby, especially for people who aren't in the hobby yet, people who don't consider themselves collectors, I think experience has got to be number one.
I'm going to agree with Clark. In terms of growing the hobby, I think product is so subjective in the first place. Like I could think that, Bowman is a great product, but other people think that, Bowman is a crap product, right? So, I think experience will, uh, it all depends on your perspective and where you're coming from. Because if you're, someone who enjoys the hobby, all aspects of the hobby, breaking, ripping, you like retail, you like hobby boxes, you open on your own, you like, pulling cards, you're going to value experience a lot more than the product itself and vice versa, right? If you're just a collector and you don't really care, you don't rip cards, you're buying singles on eBay or you appreciate kind of like, the cards itself, I think product would be your focus. But overall in this context where, you're trying to grow the hobby, Fanatics try to grow the hobby. I think they're doing exactly what I would do if I were them is I would up the game in terms of the experience and literally attack it from that angle. I think they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, you guys aren't wrong. I'm going to go the other way, though. I'm going to say better product. And it really comes down to, for me, it's like going to a restaurant, right? You can have the amazing ambiance and amazing servers and experience, but if the product sucks, you ain't going back, And it all the grassroots of anybody linking into the hobby is the product. And I think what like a good point is, all of us have invited our friends or encouraged some friends to come and rip and join in on the fun. And it really, in its current state right now, like the way products are set up and ROI or hits or whatever it is, like a friend wants to come in and they say, hey, I want to join you guys, or I want to, like, what's a good basketball set to buy? Okay, we say Optic. Okay, I'm willing to spend whatever money. What do you think? Hobby Box, $400 or $500. And this is his first experience, rips it open. Is this any good? Dante DiVincenzo auto. No, it's worth like $2. And that's it. Like, that's all they get in the entire box. There's like nothing in there for $500. And I think that's just, it's a part of experience, yes, but the product, that's what, like Clark, like you said, they open the product, they get the crazy card that they like, and that really links them into the hobby. It's one thing to have the experience and enjoy it. And I think the experience is a very critical component to further growing. Yes, they're both really, really critical. And the experience is what's going to make you and I, or whoever is in the hobby, to continue to like enjoy it and talk about it and, fan cast it to the world in digital media and stuff. But it really, for me, it really has, like, the products have to be good. It has to be good for those coming in, like brand new people who see Fanatics Events and it's absolutely amazing. Oh, what sports cards all about? Let me buy a box, and it's $100 and you get $2 worth of cards. Like, that, and then they're gonna be like, okay, that was kind of fun, but okay, I'm gonna go home now. I'm gonna go play golf again, or I'm gonna go sports bet, or like, I'll see you guys later. I'll catch you later. Like, and that's not gonna bring these people into the hobby. They might go to the Fanatics event one time to check it out, but they're not gonna enter the hobby, right? So I think for me, the product there has to be like good hits or whatever, some sort of experience within the product that really hits home. So product for me.
All right, I like that restaurant analogy. But, if you open that box and you got nothing, but you're opening it up in a nightclub with Drake, I might say I love this hobby. The experience is amazing.
It's true.
That's true.
And, Michael Rubin can pull some strings to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
Kidding aside. All right, I'll end off with a more conventional pick one. We know John likes to throw these curveball pick ones every once in a while, but I like it. All right, this is one I'm actually considering, okay? Mookie Betts. People who have listened to this pod knows I flipped way too early back in the day, and now the base auto BGS 9.5 is worth $1,000. It's come down to $1,000 now, okay? Yeah. But I'm looking at the 2014 Bowman Chrome Mookie Betts, the Black Refractor, which you guys know is number 299, right. BGS 9.5, 10, last sold for $2,700, okay? Versus the 2014 Bowman Chrome Blue Refractor of the same card, number 150, BGS 9.5, same grade, sold for $2,800, so pretty much the same price. So what are you going to buy at that price, blue or black?
What's crazy? This is random, but I literally sold my Mookie Betts Topps Chrome auto, the one that John, remember you said buy this, I bought it. I sold it for $2,800 today. Or just got paid for today. Wow. $2,800, which is crazy because I did well on that card.
That's the pop one.
Pop one, yes, the pop one, Topps Chrome. But anyways, I'm gonna go blue.
Wow,
in this case, yeah. Blue is, to me, based on my personal experience, I've had so much more success in flipping blues or selling blues. I shouldn't say flipping. I'll say liquidating. If I needed to sell blues, you'll never have a problem liquidating that. Black refractors, you'll get lowballed. It's not as desirable as a blue, especially in Mookie's card, I'd say, because I feel like black kind of like just blends in like a base card. The black refractor doesn't shine. I used to really like black refractors, but I've had many black refractors and I've had blue refractors. I've always said, you know what, blues are way nicer. They're easier to sell. They're not as scarce, but there's way more. It's supply demand. There's way more people that want it. So I'm going to say blue if it's at the same price for sure.
Wow.
Interesting.
I thought it'd be a no-brainer to pick black. But those are some good points. I'm still, I think I'm still going to choose black because people who are purchasing Mookie Betts, they're not flipping. Like Mookie Betts is not in the flipping world right now, right? You go for Bowman first chromes of like all the young studs. People buying Mookie, I feel like, are people who are willing to bet on him long term. And if that's the case, as we go further and further down the line, I think the numbered rarity is going to win overall. Now, I think a lot of the things that Hyung's saying make sense. And is there a good chance that blue will be more valuable than black in the future? Yes. But I feel I would rather, for the same amount of money, aside from liquidity, I think I would want to bet on the limited number in the parallel and hope that would become the better card in the future or the better investment in the future. I feel like it's a no-brainer, but Hyung is putting a lot of doubt into my mind. So I'm gonna go with the black. Yeah. And black is not a refractor that's really available now. It's not. It is a part of like a retro refractor set, right? So I think that will also appeal to the 2014 retro, sort of like that, Trout era of cards. I think kind of similar to like black refractors you find for like LeBron James. I think it might have that kind of potential. So I'm going to go with the black. Okay.
It's the classic hobby logic, right? This is why I brought it up, and it's the same price. And I'm going to go with the black as well. I think it's a no-brainer for me, but at the same time, knowing what hobby logic is, I could get burned in the end. But I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't shine, but I like the dark look of the black, and especially if it's a gem mint already. I'm going to go with that. And you look at the trends, the highest it sold for, the black refractor was like just over almost 17K versus the blue, which is like 12K at the peak. So the potential is higher for the black, but at the same time, I do agree, blue is definitely more liquid than black in general. And I'm sure that's the case for Mookie as well. But as a collector, I'll just stick with the black. All right, another fun episode, guys. We'll just wrap it up here. And again, thank you to all our listeners and subscribers. If you haven't given us 5 stars and you enjoyed this episode, we appreciate it if you do, and just tell your friends about it. And we'll see you again soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.